Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm going to get started. Thank you for joining me for this teaching and learning with AI session. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me and understand me okay. Just want to make sure everything's ready and good for recording. Thanks, Siriati. Appreciate the thumbs up. Great. So that. Okay, I'm just going to get my screen ready here. There we go. Okay, all right. Welcome to my presentation. This is Empowering Tomorrow's Creators, AI Tools for the Modern Classroom. And just want to make sure I've got everything set up. So I am recording, I believe. Let me just check one more time. Yes, okay. And thanks to our sponsor. I just want to make sure I give this a shout out. I mentioned futureofai.org. And there's also another great learning opportunity coming up by Learning Revolution called the Professional Productivity with ChatGPT and AI. So give that a look if you're interested in learning more about using chatbots and AI for professional productivity. And I'm going to get started with my presentation. So if you want to follow along, play around with some of the tools that I'm going to introduce you to, and if you want to bookmark this presentation for later, the bit.ly down here in the bottom right corner is where you want to head to. It's bit.ly/creators-AI, all lowercase. That link will be on every slide as I move through my presentation for today. But if you type in the link correctly, it should take you to this webpage here. This is my presentation webpage that has the presentation itself embedded, along with a list of a list of links to the tools that I'm going to try to showcase today in the 30 minutes that I have. And again, feel free to bookmark it. You're welcome to share it with others, and you're welcome to follow along and play around with some of the tools that I'm going to showcase today during my presentation. And I'll try as much as I can to follow along in the chat. Or maybe I'll check back in the chat, see if anybody has any questions near the end if we have time. All right. So for this presentation, I should introduce myself first. My name is Michael Fricano II. By day, I'm a K-6 design and technology teacher at a private school in Honolulu, Hawaii called ʻIolani School. It's a K-12 private school, but I primarily work with the elementary levels, K-6. That's my specialty. That's what I have my degree in. But my passion is teaching teachers. I love presenting. I love sharing the tools that I use, that I plan to use with my students, and sharing how I use them as well, and just helping other educators grow and learn along with me. But I'm also a Google for Education certified trainer. I'm a CS Discoveries facilitator for code.org. And I'm an ambassador of many EdTech tools, all tools that I use in my classroom with my students throughout the school year. And the tools that I'm going to showcase with you today are tools that I'm currently exploring myself, potentially using with a few grade levels in K-6 next school year for various projects in my design and technology class. For this session, I want to try to hit on three main things. So one, a tool or a resource that might help us assess AI tools that we're considering using in our classrooms. I'll share that resource with you first, and hopefully it's something that you might consider using when you're exploring using AI tools with your students. I'm also going to share some AI tools that are available today. Some are all these tools are free to access and free to use. Some of them have like a paid version to it as well, but most of them, I believe, are free to use currently. These are tools that can be accessed and used today on the web. And then I'm also going to show some AI tools that are on the horizon, some things that I'm keeping my eye on that I think have some great potential for use in classrooms. And so I'll share a few of those with you today if we have time by the end of the presentation. So those are the three things that I'm going to focus on during this session. So first, let's take a look at a resource to help us assess AI tools. I'm going to throw a bunch of AI tools at you that you may or may not be aware of, and just kind of demo them a little bit. And if there are tools that you're interested in exploring later on, it's important that we take a deeper dive into the potential use of those tools and how they might serve our students, how they might serve us as professional educators, and if we are, if they're going to be beneficial to us, and how might that be? So it's important that we assess them. So there's this really amazing resource online. It's not something that I created. I didn't have a hand in creating it. I just came across it one day while I was looking for ways to better assess tools myself. And this resource comes from TCEA, and it's a teacher rubric and checklist for evaluating the potential use of AI tools in our classrooms. And it's a really great resource. And let me just show it to you. So it comes, if you're following along with me in the presentation, this is slide 8. And there are links to these resources in the presentation as well as the website. But the link here takes you to the TCEA website, to this blog post that came out, or this article that came out February 1st, which shares access to the teacher rubric and checklist further down in the article here. So it's a PDF document that you can download and print or use on your device as you assess AI tools. And by clicking that link, it looks like this. So we have a rubric for assessing AI tools, and then we have a checklist further down here. So the way this resource is meant to be used is you start with the checklist first. So if you come across an AI tool that you think might be really useful to you and your students in your classroom, you want to first use the checklist. And you work through the checklist and you look at four specific areas related to the tool. So one is its relevancy, how well the AI tool aligns with your goals in your classroom and your curriculum standards. And you simply just check off, does it have curriculum alignment? Yes, kinda, no. Is it appropriate for the age of my students? Is it engaging? Does it have interactivity? Do I think it's going to keep my students well engaged in the activity or the project that I'm leading? And by simply checking off these items, you should get a better quick understanding of whether that tool is going to actually be helpful. Does it meet the important key aspects of a great tool in the classroom? The other three areas are student data privacy, extremely important. So how does it collect data? What is the tools in the company's data collection policy? So taking a closer look at those, the user agreements, the data policy agreements, data usage, compliance with laws, specifically FERPA, COPA, and GDPR. Does it address those laws? Does it specifically mention that's compliant, and how is it compliant? And so simply checking those off based on what you find on the tool's website. Ease of learning and support, right? So again, the first step here is using the checklist. So if you get a lot of yeses, then that might be a tool you want to invest more time in. And if you get more kindas and nos, then it's probably not the best tool for you and your students, right? So use the checklist, determine whether it's something you want to further explore. And then if you come across a tool that meets a lot of the yeses, then you move to the rubric and take an even deeper dive into what it offers and how it supports your students and how it protects student data and privacy. And so that the rubric is like the step 2. You can kind of take a closer look. What does it do? What does it do really good at? And what might it kind of lack in? So really great resource for assessing AI tools, something you might want to take a closer look at. And as I share tools with you today, and if you come across any that you're really interested in, maybe take a step back and assess that tool a little further using something like this teacher rubric and checklist. All right, so let's get into some tools. So what I'd like to do in this session is just show you some tools. These are tools that I'm not an expert at. A lot of these tools I'm personally currently exploring this summer with potential use in my classrooms for various projects across different grade levels. I just want to kind of showcase some of the tools that I've come across that I think you might be very interested in as well. So I've kind of broken this up into different kinds of AI generators. So the first set of tools I'm going to show, I think, are some of the most popular are AI image generators. So AI tools that can generate images based on text prompts, right? And so one of my favorite AI image generators that I've been really exploring is Adobe Firefly. Okay, so Adobe has its own image generating tool called Adobe Firefly, and it's a standalone tool, but they're also building it into other Adobe apps. So apps like Adobe Express, Adobe Illustrator. They're building this image generating tool into other Adobe tools that you might be familiar with. And it's a text to image generator. So, and it's got some really unique features that I think make it really powerful. You know, one thing I struggle with in using text AI image generators is coming up with a good prompt, right? I'm not really good at prompt crafting. That's something I'm working on this summer as well. And so any tool that, you know, might start with a text prompt, but has a lot of other features built in to refine that prompt are really helpful to me. Adobe Firefly is one of those tools that does a really good job of helping to fine tune after giving it a prompt. So here I am in a Adobe Firefly tool on the web, and I've given it a prompt already. This is just a prompt that was automatically generated on the main Adobe website. I didn't come up with this prompt on my own. I'm currently signed in to a free Adobe account. So if you look up here, it's got where's it? So there we go. So it's with a free account, you get 25 credits per month, monthly generative credits. And I've currently used 17 out of the 25. That's going to refresh in July for me. I work at a school that's an Adobe school, so we have Adobe accounts. And last I checked, when I logged into my school account through Adobe Firefly, I had I think it was 400 or 500 credits. So if you work at an Adobe school, I think you get a significantly more higher amount of credits to generate images in Adobe Firefly here. But I've given it a prompt at the bottom. A beautiful, cozy fantasy stone cottage in a spring forest with some other details. And you can see that it generates four slightly different images based on that prompt. I'm currently using a square aspect ratio. One thing that I like about Adobe Firefly that some other image generating tools don't do is it allows you to change the aspect ratio. And if you look on the left side over here, I've got square selected, but I can change that to landscape, portrait, or even widescreen if I want to. So if I change the aspect ratio and regenerate, then I get a landscape size picture here. It's going to generate. Give it a moment. It's going to fully regenerate those four pictures, so they'll look a lot different. Well, not a lot, but a little different from before, but different aspect ratio size. And then some other features we have along the left side here in the settings. So there's like content type. So I can choose whether I want the content to generate as an art, more artistic versus more photorealistic, right? I could switch between those two. But the other two really powerful tools are structure and style. So structure, what that allows you to do is you can give it a reference image, right? So maybe I want that cottage with a stream or the mountains in the background to look fairly similar to other pictures that I've seen. And so I can give it I can upload a picture that I want it to reference as it crafts those example images for me. There's also a couple of examples here as well that I could choose from, right? Or I could browse the gallery of reference images. So based on photography or line drawings, again, I can give it a reference image and it'll regenerate the four examples based on that reference image. So that's the structure option. And then there's the style, which is what I really love. So this is where I talked about earlier, where like I struggle with the prompt crafting. So I might come up with a very general, nondescript prompt. But the style settings here allow me to further tweak that prompt that I've come up with and give it filters. So one is the visual intensity, the strength of the image. You see some descriptions here. Adjusting the overall intensity of the photo's existing visual characteristics, adjust the strength of style, matching, and effects. And then you have other references. So I could have a reference a style. I can upload a picture. If there's a particular picture I found that has a very unique style to it, I could give it access to that reference style. And then I can also apply filters that are called effects. You see some effects that are already added down here. So from the effects library, I've got the art, the fantasy, the cinematic, and the hyper-realistic effect that have been added from this menu here to generate those pictures. And these are effects that I could change. I could interchange them. I could close out. I could get rid of some of these effects. I could add others. So like I'll get rid of the hyper-realistic and add the painting effect. And then when I regenerate, get a completely new set of pictures based on my original prompt here, but now with the painting effect added in. There we go. So slightly different, more like a painting, less photorealistic. So some really cool options there for adding specific effects. Maybe I don't really know the wording around getting those effects myself, so using the effects library I think is really useful. Then you have things like color, tone, lighting, and camera angle. So a lot of really unique settings and features to help craft that image. And then once you have an image, you can edit that image. They have some really cool features like generative fill that you might have seen in other image generators. So I could take that image and maybe I want to fill in and put an animal here or something in the sky or change the style of tree. I could actually choose, that specific area, fill that in, right? And then with the prompt tool down here, I could explain that I could give it a different style of tree, and then it'll regenerate in that specific area. Sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't. I think it just depends on how well you craft the prompt here specifically. But you could also subtract things too. You could take things away. Maybe I want to take away the mountains in the background or the clouds. So some really cool added features for further editing a specific picture that you find in the tool itself. Okay, exit out of there. Okay, so that is Adobe Firefly. Okay, and some things to look forward to with Adobe. They have some generative audio and video tools that they have shared or that they're working on currently. They're not available, but some other tools that Adobe is working on as well. The next image generating tool I want to share is ImageFX. So this is through Google. And it's a part of Google's test kitchen, they call it. So these are free to access. You log in with your Google account, and there are currently 3 tools available in Google's test kitchen. One of them is ImageFX, which I had here already. And so this one, different layout, but it comes up with 4 pictures based on a prompt. But what I love about Google's ImageFX is if you look at my prompt here, so, very different from Adobe. What it does here, it takes your prompt, generates the pictures, and then it pulls out keywords in your prompt and it gives you a drop down to change those words. These are descriptive words, right? So I originally started with a photo of gold and ruby treasures, but what Google automatically did in the tool was it took the word gold and said, oh, maybe you want to change it to silver or copper or bronze. So it gives you other suggestions based on your original wording, which I think is really neat. You can, really change the prompt by using these drop downs and going maybe photo of silver with sapphires and artifacts, not sparkling, but glowing in a cave. And then I can recreate my pictures based on the suggestions that Google offered me in the ImageFX here. So you see that's changing the prompt a little bit, giving me specific different set of pictures. And then what's also really neat about ImageFX is there's a section down here where it can give me more keywords to add to my prompt. So like I could say, I don't know, add in sketchy at the end there. If I don't see like those, I can click more and give more, I don't know, dream aesthetic. Okay, so you can further, customize your prompt by using that library down here that is automatically generated for you. And it turns those into drop downs that you could customize even further. So really cool way of taking your prompt and giving you suggestions, sort of auto-filling different suggestions. And then you can take an image, you can edit that image. It has its own sort of generative fill, right? So I could highlight an area and then give it a prompt and tell it to do something else, add something in or change some aspect of it. Um, this one's called generate edits. So I could do that with those 4 photos. Okay, so just a different image generating tool, kind of does things a little differently. I like this one for the drop downs that give you suggestions to change, which I think is really neat. Okay, the next one is, I'm really low on time, is Many Worlds. This one's pretty quick. This is a 360 image generator. So you give it a prompt, very simple, web-based. Give it a prompt, and it generates a 360 picture. So earlier I gave it the prompt underwater ancient city, surrounded by vibrant coral reefs and a variety of sea life. Not quite underwater, right? But really cool. And then you can download this image, 360 image, and use it in some like virtual reality creation tool if you want, or use it in a 360 video of some type. Again, this is free to access. You don't have to log into anything. You just plug in your prompt, submit it. Usually takes a couple of minutes to generate, and then you can download that 360 image with the download tool over here. So very, very simple tool, not too much, not too much to it. You can't really, further edit the picture beyond that. You just give it a different prompt. But really cool 360 image generator that you might want to consider checking out. Okay, so some ideas around image generators in the classroom. So one, it's a great opportunity for students to illustrate their stories, their poems, create characters and settings for stories. Of course, designing posters and presentations, maybe designing different elements of that poster, creating the visual elements of their presentation for a class project. In terms of I think specifically with Adobe Firefly, because of the style options and the style settings, it's a great way to explore art styles and abstract concepts and use the tool to create imagery around different styles. You can create personalized avatars. Seen lots of examples of that. Okay, so moving on to the next one, the next batch, AI music generators. So these are tools that create music and sound. The first one I want to show you, we're jumping back to Google's Test Kitchen. So I showed you Image FX earlier. This one is Music FX, and very similar style. So you give it a prompt, it generates that song. So I think, let me see if you guys can hear this. So I did a major key melody that evokes a sense of brightness and optimism. And if I press play, created this song based on my prompt. And then from there, I can customize that prompt. It took keywords out of my prompt, turned them into drop-down menus, and gave me some other suggestions that I could change it and customize it, and then regenerate a new prompt. And then what's really cool is they have this DJ mode. So I can take that prompt and it breaks it up into like styles and instruments. And I could, increase or decrease the amount that I want for that particular item in my song. So like sambas. So right now, let's see what it sounds like. That, but if I want more samba, and then you can add more prompts. It gives you suggestions. I could use the lucky dice to add suggestions if I want. So just a really different way of creating music. This one just creates music. It doesn't create lyrics or singing or anything like that. And the other one I want to show, oops, I didn't jump ahead there, Music FX, there we go, is Suno. Now, Suno, I really love Suno. It's great at creating lyrics and voice and music. Unfortunately, they're in a bit of hot water. I wouldn't say a bit. They're in a lot of hot water right now. So I put a little disclaimer up here in the slide. Suno, I'll come back to that in a moment. Basically, you give Suno a prompt and it creates the music and the lyrics and the vocals for that song. So like this one was a salsa anthemic rhythmic song called, and it gave it a title, Guitar on Fire. Let's see what it sounds like. So that was all completely generated by AI. I think there's a lot of potential there for like students creating songs around particular topics that they're learning about, or a teacher creating songs for the class to help learn about a specific topic. So a lot of potential here, I think, for the classroom for using AI generated music. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, they're in some hot water. They're currently being sued by the music industry, and the evidence that the music industry has seems pretty solid that they were exploiting copyrighted sound recordings without permission. I've got a link to the article there if you want to learn more about what's happening with Suno and another tool called Udio or Udio. They're both being sued by the same music industries. But aside from that, if it's something you want to explore, they work off of credits as well, and they're looking at building out a teacher program if they're able to do that. So there's a form here you can fill out that'll give you 5,000 credits towards your Suno account. But you know, if something you might want to explore. But I'm going to keep a close eye on the lawsuit that Suno and UDO are currently involved in and see what happens with this particular tool. Okay, so some ideas for AI music generators. So again, experimenting with genres, tempos, different instruments, especially with that Google Test Kitchen tool, I think is really neat, the DJ mode. Creating original music and support songwriting, so helping students craft their own music. Generating background music for things like podcasts, for their video projects, and for other projects. Creating that background music, I think, is a great opportunity for using AI music generators. And exploring different music styles, learning about musical structure. Some good opportunities for that with these types of tools. I got a couple minutes left, so I want to show one more AI 3D model generator. This one's really fun. It's uses text, a text prompt, creates a 3D model. This one's from Luma AI Genie. And I've got one kind of created here already. So this one, you have to log in. Currently, it's free to access, free to use. You give it a text prompt. Oh, yeah, here we go. And it generates 4 different types of 3D models. This one has said a monster made of smoke and ash. And when you click on it, you can explore that model in 3D. What's really cool is you can for each individual model creates, you can do a high res filter on it to kind of really brighten things up and smooth things out. And then you can download this in many different 3D model formats for what other, you know, if kids are creating 3D games or using other tools. I imagine you can also 3D print these models if you're familiar with that process, but a really cool, unique way of using AI. I'm sorry, 3D model generating. So again, helping to visualize characters in a story or a project they're working on, designing props and architectural models, creating art installations, 3D printing, as I mentioned, and creating characters and objects for game design. So there's some really cool opportunities there. And then this one, I'm not gonna have time to showcase it, but something you might want to explore. A really amazing tool, Rosebud AI. What it does is it uses a chatbot and helps you develop a game and the code behind that game. And it'll create the code, but it does a really good job of explaining the coding process and giving the user ideas for how they could make the changes themselves in the code. And it gives you access to the code as well. But feel free to give that a try. It's called Rosebud AI. Some ideas there. And then some tools on the horizon because I'm almost out of time here. So Google's Test Kitchen is working on a video FX tool. You can sign up for the wait list by visiting the link there. Some really cool examples of videos they've created already. There's a lot of talk about video creation. There's a couple tools that are already out there now. And then there's Notebook LM. They're currently working on something called an audio output, where you'll have a chatbot having a vocal, like speaking conversation with you versus text-based conversation, where you can converse with the AI chatbot around your research materials that are uploaded into the Google Notebook LM tool. And then the other one, oops, is some tools coming to Google Classroom. So if you're a Google Classroom user out there like me, they're working on some AI lesson builder tools for Google Classroom. It's currently in beta testing right now. But this YouTube video just gives a very short sneak peek into what that tool might look like in the near future for Google Classroom users. Great. And I'm out of time, guys. I really want to thank you for joining me today during this teaching and learning with AI session. My name is Michael Fricano II. You can find me on social media. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them in the chat. But I know you guys there's another session you guys can get to. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the conference. Stop the